Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Cancer New Moon webinar of the 2025 initiative. Every month soon after the new moon, we gather together to use the opportunity of the group meditation to strengthen the thought forms of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Every month, we focus on one goal that's selected and matched to the qualities of the specific astrological sign. This month, we use the opportunity of the energies of sign of Cancer to bring our focus to the goal number 2, zero hunger. So thank you for joining us, and I invite Katya to lead us in alignment, preparing us for the work today.
Hello, everybody. Let's get ourselves situated in a comfortable position. And imagine our group being together in one circle and get united with the energies of love and light and will to good. We achieve like our inner alignment between the lower bodies and we sound Om. We align with the soul and spiritual triad. We visualize a beam of light in the middle of the group with the 7 floating radiating lotuses, group centers, and we align our individual centers with the group centers. And we see that alignment extended with the centers of the new group of world service and with the planetary centers. We visualize the triangle, Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity, receiving the energies of Cancer. And holding them as the group is working for the purpose of supporting the goal, zero hunger. We focus in the heart center of the group and together we say Gayatri. O thou who givest the sustenance to the universe, from whom all things proceed, to whom all things return, unveil to us the face of the true spiritual sun, hidden by the disk of golden light, that we may know the truth and do our whole duty as we journey to thy sacred feet. And holding our attention in the center of the group, we proceed to our work. Thank you, everybody, for being and working for such an important phenomena as SDG goals. And especially now, because at this particular moment in time, we are basically 24 hours away from a very important event, which is the eclipse that happened on July 13th. It's eclipse in Cancer, in the sign of Cancer. And it was happening at the same time as the sun was at the direct opposition with the Pluto, with a great being that we call Pluto, planet Pluto, in Capricorn. So the line of the direct, and the moon was in, I'm sorry, I'm in New York. Those are the signs of the big city. And moon was in a direct opposition with Saturn. And it's an amazing opportunity to see in depth, because Cancer, it's a sign of man's consciousness. It's the very depth of our human psyche, instinct. And for the next 6 months, we're going to experience the energy of this event, which will be strengthened again by another eclipse, which will be in Leo. But the main line of that, supported by a very interesting combination, because at the same time we have a water trine, because our sun is in Cancer, and it is trining Neptune in Pisces and Jupiter in Scorpio. So those amazing forces to look deep and to bring to an end and allow a new beginning, like Neptune in Pisces, is going to be aiding us in this, for the next 6 months. And also we have Venus in Virgo, Uranus in Taurus, and Saturn in Capricorn, creating another trine, another potent presence in the earth signs. And so I think that those energies are very potent support into anything that we're going to bring into intention and manifesting the thought forms in support of this goal. It is very deep human, it's very deep human necessity to be full, to be fed, not only with the physical food, which is essential, but also with the vibration of that food, with the spiritual component of that, with a sense of being protected and nurtured. So all those aspects can be supported with the energies we are standing in today. So I suggest we move and work and seed the seeds at this particular potent moment. Thank you. And Maria Christina, over to you.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, thank you, Katya. And thank you all, actually, for joining together, taking the time to focus on the work of preparation as we approach 2025. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yes, we do.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Alex, for inviting me to participate and for all of us to focus on the work of preparation as we approach that time of decision of 2025. And I must say it's a joy to join together, focalizing and building lighted thought forms, as Katya suggests, building group thought forms of light and redemption, thought forms of solution. Much that is happening today is so distressing, yet today, and let's see if I can get to my next slide, the United Nations holds a beacon of hope, the vision of one planet, greatly strengthened by the worldwide agreement on the Sustainable Development Goals, a united vision for our world. We are focusing today on the second goal, that of zero hunger during this time of the new moon of Cancer. Cancer, a magnetic, magical gateway into manifestation, we are told. And rebirth, the modus operandi of Cancer, is a magical and magnetic interplay between the form side of life and life itself. I build a lighted house and therein dwell. The Cancerian keynote of the soul in incarnation reminds us of a journey we consciously undertook, a pilgrimage in which we are first called to build the lighted house of the personality or little self, leading to the lighted house of the higher self, the egoic lotus. And today, as stewards of the earth, the lighted house of humanity and earth itself. The cycle now being inaugurated in the world is that of growth through sharing. The Tibetan teacher writes that advanced humanity can now share the work, the responsibility, and the trained reticence of the hierarchy. Whilst paralleling this and simultaneously, the mass of men are learning the lessons of economic sharing. And in this sharing, my brothers, in this lies the sole hope of the world. The progressive unfoldment of the personality, wrong slide, was popularly defined by Abraham Maslow in his hierarchy of needs. The pyramid that he constructed places food as a keystone, a cornerstone in that pyramid. The new principle of sharing is being released by the activity of the fourth ray of conflict, we are told. This principle of sharing will someday be the governing factor in the economic life of the world, regulated and controlled by those men who are alert to human need upon the physical plane. Today, we are at a critical tipping point. The inescapable struggle between the forces of light and the forces of materialism are in full swing. In esoteric parlance, the Tibetan describes it as a conflict between the planetary dweller on the threshold and the angel of the presence. And you will excuse my. Which includes, he states, a struggle between sharing and greed. He repeatedly refers to the four freedom, where freedom from want is acknowledged as key. He also notes that someday the principles of cooperation and of sharing will be substituted for those of possessive greed and competition, and adds this is an inevitable next step ahead for humanity, one for which the entire evolutionary process has prepared mankind. And today, there are countless engaged in responding to world hunger in a great variety of ways. In a new $10 million program dubbed Zero Hunger, Zero Waste, one of the largest retail grocers here in the United States where I live, Kroger's, has launched a national effort to end both hunger in its communities and eliminate waste across the country by 2025. Francis Moore LePay, an American researcher, founder of the Institute of Policy and Development, wrote a seminal book in the 70s introducing the then heretical idea that a vegetarian or low-meat diet was healthy for human beings. This is now considered common knowledge, but then it was unheard of. And she notes we feed almost half the world's grain to livestock, returning only a fraction in meat, while millions starve. And she concluded, hunger is man-made. Well, her latest book of 19 books, Daring Democracy, addresses the distress, the sense of powerlessness of the times, and offers a variety of solutions. Even now, from July 9th through the 18th, the United Nations High-Level Politics Forum on Sustainable Development is bringing together more than 1,000 government, business, and civil society leaders, which Martha will update us on. But I would end with a quote from the Tibetan. There are thousands who have dreamed the same dream, seen the same vision, believed in the divine possibilities which are latent in all human hearts. They know also that selfless sharing and cooperative understanding between all men of goodwill everywhere can build a new world, bring into being a more beautiful life, and restore that which humanity itself has destroyed. The best is yet to come. We can rest back upon the realization that the history of the human race has been one of steady moving forward down the ages and towards the light. And here I am delighted to pass the baton on to Martha Gallagher, who has actively been attending this affirmation conference at the United Nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Christina and Katja, Alex and Daniela. It's a wonderful team to work with in terms of developing our shared discourse around the issues of the Sustainable Development Goals that hold so much possibility for humankind. When approaching the topic of zero hunger, Sustainable Development Goal 2 from the UN perspective, let us recognize how this goal reflects the challenge the UN itself faces from an esoteric perspective. We may be reminded of the words of decay and externalization of the hierarchy, page 342. True understanding between men and between nations will be a longed-for objective. and what humanity determines to have, it ever succeeds in achieving. This is an occult law. He then stated, desire is as yet the strongest force in the world. Organized, unified desire has been the basic reason for the appalling acts of success, that which led to the UN Charter. And yet, in the same discussion, he reminds us, the secret of the will lies in the recognition of the divine nature of man. What we now know is that it was desire that precipitated World War II and will that ended it. Thus, when we are discussing any goal or target within the SDG agenda, we are in fact uncovering the human shift from desire to will. So while the statistics remain appalling, the collective determination to end hunger grows ever stronger. The statistics today are 800, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, 815 million people experience severe hunger, and it is a 38 million increase from the last counting. Nevertheless, if the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda reflects the largest collective campaign ever tried, we will keep on the table those realities that prevent us from such achievement. We notice, as Maria Cristina mentioned, the battle between individual egos, the individualism of countries, and collective purpose. And I can assure you that collective purpose is ongoing, very inspiring. Hunger as a collective responsibility surfaced early when the UN began, and on October 16, 1945, 42 countries acted in Quebec, Canada, to create the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. This was done to reflect the recognition that hunger was intrinsically connected to war. Sadly, we still see the continuation of starvation becoming a weapon, a tool of war. Originally, when the UN began to honor sovereignty among nations, the littlest ones being equal to the bigger ones, human rights, the sense of personal dignity, along economic, political, and social lines came after the Charter was organized. These rights were not collected into one umbrella until the concept culture of peace was identified in the latter part of the 20th century as core to the ending of war. If you wish, Google Global Movement for the Culture of Peace, and you will find a Facebook page and some information as to that coalition that existing at the UN. So while millions continue to starve, nevertheless, tens of thousands of organizations have arisen to remediate the problem. Until, however, the culture of peace becomes the dominant narrative, the problem will continue. So what is going on at the UN? I would say that people on a global level are learning to organize themselves in ways that strengthen effectiveness, raise the bar on accountability, and seek achievement through nonviolent strategic processes. With regard to zero hunger, they further recognize the intersectionality of the issue. And herein lies the power of the Sustainable Development Goals. So that now that climate change is a direct threat to food security, and equitable food distribution will require careful stewardship of waters in areas of acute scarcity, we can see that the quality of organizing becomes essential. So herein lies the current forum that is going on at the United Nations today, called the High Level Political Forum, which is a place which right now is assessing and reviewing the ongoing progress of 6 of the goals 6, 7, 11, 15, 17, I think I dropped a couple. And that 47 countries are voluntarily creating national reviews to review how they're doing. Some of us working at the UN recognize 2 UNs. The ones where governments in collusion with some civil society, private sector groups jockey to achieve self-interested goals. These coalitions include religions and business, and alongside that, a growing intercooperating network of government, private sector, civil society working toward the public good see to it that the reports are accurate and full. And it is this trending toward the public good in very difficult times that needs to be our focus. Such trending always includes the exposure of that which is denied. Perhaps one of the essential aims for those of us working at the UN is to forge ever higher collective standards, a kind of global conscience, if you like. It is for this reason we become impassioned about the largest campaign ever tried by mankind. It is a mistake to believe, despite the numbers, that things have gotten worse. Because in this situation, we note that human population has gone from 2.5 billion people in 1945 to roughly 7.5 billion now. It is said that the scientific, technological innovation has expanded in the latter half of the 20th century more than in all of human history. And the demands to stay aligned have become equivalently greater. We may recognize the most important partnership of all, which is that lighted channel that exists between those masters who have chosen their path of earth service to guide humanity into greater responsibility as a collective. Humans, therefore, have access to unlimited power when we are turned into these channels. Yet we must remember these masters need us to find the means to turn the tide. Ever more intricate networks, therefore, are needed, and workshops and trainings to buttress civil society's endeavors to bring to light the gap between words and practice exist. One of them, for example, called, it's an acronym, TAP, Transparency, Accountability, and Partnership, is made up of over 400 civil society organizations who operate to create collective shadow reports that spotlight what governments often hide in their voluntary national reviews. Another large coalition of over 400 interfaith organizations is positioned within the United Nations Population Fund Association. This interfaith group stands for women's rights and responsibility to achieve sovereignty over their own bodies, including breastfeeding. It works closely within the newly created hub at the UN, known as UN Women. In our reflection, then, we need not let human complexity overwhelm this steadfast collective determination to actually achieve zero hunger. Nor must we sink in the muck of human suffering. The human spirit can be a triumph no matter where it finds itself. on National Public Radio in the United States, a story was told about how Syrian parents put their hungry children to bed by telling them stories that made them laugh in a way that helped them forget their hunger and ease their passage into sleep. We may never by ourselves change the statistics, but those of us in urban areas have so many ways of alleviating hunger. So many in rural areas have the actual means to change the problem. If we recognize that our small actions fall into the pool of this large, complex political organizing that is taking place as we speak. Another resource might be camponeplanet.org, which offers ways of understanding the intersectionality of all the goals. Our increased determination to look at our practices of harmlessness, selflessness, and right speech will rule the day when we apply these terms collectively, when we honor the fact that nonviolence is growing alongside increased violence. We seek to end partisanship on every side, to elevate discourse. We are then, in fact, contributing to the culture of peace and the better realization of the UN mandate. Thank you.
We invite now participants who joined this webinar from around the planet to share your thoughts on how we can help through our meditative service, bringing our focus together on the goal number 2, to help humanity move forward, alleviating that part of our big human family from hunger. So please use the function of raising your hand on your control panel that we could unmute you, that you could join the conversation. And thank you very much, our triangle of focalizers, Katya, Maria, Christina, Marta, preparing this presentation that helps our group to focus on the goal number 2. And
this is Martha speaking. I wanted everyone to know that while it doesn't directly impact the problem of zero hunger, indirectly, another component of the solution just took place yesterday, which is the passing of a global compact on migration. It was the one sector of humanity that didn't get enough recognition within the Sustainable Development Goals. This global compact, again, becomes a normative standard to honor the power, resilience, and the obligation for care and protection. It happened to be the current President of the General Assembly's priority, and it's a tremendous breakthrough in light of the opposition, especially of the United States. And while it takes time to implement these documents, indeed, they set a standard that cannot really be turned back. So we have a lot to celebrate in the place of our sorrow that so many are suffering. And Maria Christina, the slide that you offered with the hungry child is heart-wrenching.
Oh, yes. and it's so stark in relationship to those of us who have so much. It's a very interesting, I mean, this whole shift towards zero hunger will affect all of us in our lifestyles in many ways. A third of the food in the United States goes to waste. I mean, that's a very big change of lifestyle. Just, however, seriously, meat was considered a staple of the diet, and vegetarianism did not exist in 1960. That has been just, to me, that just indicates the possibility of change. And more recently, Martha, you were mentioning the link between conflict and hunger. And I don't know, can you see my screen now, Alex? If it's, I have it on, I actually have it on a site that shows, I didn't have time to, I can't find my notes. Historic UN resolution links conflict and hunger. And apparently, isn't that interesting? The 15 members currently in the Security Council. Apparently, it was quite a transformational moment for all parties involved in armed conflict to comply with international law, not targeting sites that produce or distribute food. The resolution, and I'm skipping, I'm not sure of the time, the resolution also condemns the use of starvation as a weapon for war. Apparently, this is quite a powerful moment that slowly the nations of the world, as nations, are making little baby steps in spite of my country. As we know, I know I was talking to, we were talking earlier with Katya, who brought up the situation of breast milk. Mm-hmm. Yeah, would you like to share what happened at that meeting with the UN?
Martha, I think you had a very, vivid.
Well, simply, for those of you who are not informed, there was a resolution before the General Assembly to support the use of breastfeeding, and the United States prevented it from coming to the floor. But what I said at that point is that when we have actors who act badly, when you have a forum of countries who simply cannot be denied when it comes to simple common sense behavior, that it's sort of like a family, that the bad behavior becomes exposed, and there's a counter trend toward recognition of the importance of breastfeeding, and that the reasoning the United States had for blocking it, of course, was that they thought it was bad for business. And those of us who, and I'm sure there are many in our group who already recognize the bad publicity that came to companies such as Nestle when they tried to substitute breastfeeding for the packaged milk, and it backfired, and Nestle had to retract its distribution. So but what seems to me important at this time is to hold very steady in this determination to move into continued progress. So while my point was about the complex system of organization that does not require governance, in fact, it seeks to partner with governance, but when you have thousands of organizations who have figured out, and thanks to the digital networks that are growing, have figured out how to intercooperate, it's not only the humanitarian service of ending hunger that comes into play, it's this notion of conscience, a collective conscience that decides what is humanity's bottom line. And we all witnessed that at the border between Mexico and the United States just recently. So at the UN, there's the forum, and when I meditate, try to call in the masters to guide our work at the United Nations, is the awareness of how frustrated they must be that humanity must go so slowly. Yes.
No, actually, Tibetan says that, I believe it's somewhere in the books, that actually hierarchy is deeply grateful for whatever accomplishments we make, because it might seem very easy, but it isn't. It's just like Maria Christina said, that we made, it seems like in 50 years and 40 years, the huge change is coming around, and we take it as slow because we recognize the need. But at the same time, for humanity, it's a very fast pace. Truly, the change that's coming for the last 70 years, it's a lot. And hierarchy is deeply grateful.
In support of that, Katya,
Oh well, okay.
the second speaker at the high level political forum put down his notes, and he said, folks, when the change happens, it's going to happen quickly because it will be a quantum change. It is not going to be a linear change. And I've never heard anything said at that like that said on the formal panel. Maria Christina, you wanted to say something?
No, that was marvelous, Martha, to have that acknowledged. It can turn on a dime. The whole, it's going to be a quantum leap. We live in initiatory times, and by definition, we cannot see the next step ahead because we're stepping into a whole new world perspective, the emergence of another kingdom, the increased light, etheric vision. I mean, thank you, Martha. It's really a joy to know that those words are being used at the United Nations. I was going to say that we are in the thick of the battle, and it is difficult sometimes to achieve a more detached perspective, the perspective of hierarchy, as observers, as trained observers, is a difficult one. We are in the thick of it, and it is through us, our hands and our feet, that hierarchy works on these threefold lower world of humanity. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I see among our attendees 4 triangles with exclamation points. They aren't hands. Could that be our attendees, Claire and Jean and Joe?
I think those are the symbols of telepathic communication that's trying to come through. But also there is a raised hand. I unmuted Sharon. Sharon?
Hi. Hi, Sasha. And hi to everyone on the line, and to the triangle of presenters. I wanted to thank you for the thought-provoking presentation that you gave and shared with us. I also wanted to just quickly say that the resolution that Martha was speaking to, I think the country was Ecuador, if I'm not mistaken. And it was interesting to me that the media presented it in a way that said that Ecuador was pretty much forced to withdraw the resolution because the United States said that they would not, that they would cut their aid. And so it was very understandable as to why Ecuador would withdraw the resolution. And it portrayed the United States in a position of bullying based on money and aid, which has been going on, as we know, for years. But I wanted to say that I think that there's progress being made in the sense that the next time this kind of thing happens, I think that smaller countries will come together and say that they will provide the aid. And I think this because of my limited experience at the UN. I remember one time being in the balcony of the UN, and they were debating whether or not Palestine should be recognized. And the more developed countries got up there and basically said that they should not be. First, they have to behave themselves, and then they can be recognized. And the smaller countries got up there and said, no, we think it's time. And so I think this is all very unprecedented, and we're finding out at the United Nations that the United States perhaps does not have the leverage that they once thought they had, or once had, actually, with full honor and respect at one point, with Bill Clinton being, I guess, the only president or the only leader that had received a standing ovation from the General Assembly. So we did have some good times, but I think that there's progress being made during these low times. The last thing I wanted to say was more of a personal thing, is that my heart is broken with everything that is going on, and I sometimes think that if I was not in the work, I don't know, I'd probably be some sort of a basket case for sure. But and so I have much gratitude for the Tibetan master and sharing this work with us. And so every morning when I'm doing the meditation work, I find myself calling in all the mothers of the world, of which we have 2 billion, 2 billion mothers. And I don't know their names, but I call them. I call them because the Tibetan master says to use your creative imagination and to visualize whatever you want. And so if you tell somebody like me that, I'm going to call in 2 billion mothers around the world, and then I see them coming, and they come because I call them, and the light gets very bright, and it's these 2 billion mothers might very well change the course of events someday. And the very last thing I wanted to say is that with Martha and Iris and Georgie and a few others are holding space in the meditation room every Thursday at noon to support the global movement for the culture of peace, and in doing so, helping to support the spiritual work of the UN and the progress of the Sustainable Development Goals. And I share that as an invitation to all those who want to feel inclined to link up with us Thursdays at noon in the meditation room. Thank you.
What a wonderful segue into meditation. Thank you, Sharon.
Mary Christina, if I just may add just one thing, and before we do, is just to anchor the thought. I spoke once about the people that created this organization with the logo, Build Your Soil or Die. It's about people who are concerned and working towards the quality of the soil that we are using to grow all that food. So the actual food will have nutrition that is beneficial, and that actually sustains us. And since we're having this Earth trine standing now in this point in time, just to support this amazing being that is bringing up all that in which we live and move and have our being, our planetary logo, and this capacity to rebuild, and using this mother energy of Cancer just to restore and rebuild and renew that soil that we live on and that we use for our purposes, and that we pollute and deplete, so the other direction would be also, taken as enrich, renew, and cherish, our soils. Thank you. That's it.
How much time do we have, Sasha, for meditation?
We have 12 minutes.
Is it time?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay. Do you want to put my screen on, please?
Yes.
I would like to start with alignment, which I have been trained to know is critical. Oops, show my screen. Strengthening the hands of the new group of world servers. And I start very foundational, if you will indulge me, on the actual bone structure, balanced on the sitting bones. Because when we balance on the sitting bones, the weight is not on the spinal column, on that little bone, and that enables the spinal column to open up as that tailbone can drop, relieved of weight, and open up through the torso, the muscles relaxing, through the lengthening and opening of the shoulders, up through the neck, releasing the neck muscle, so that the skull is balanced atop that uppermost vertebrae. And the jaw softens and the attention continues until the point between the eyebrows, the ajna center. Softening the eyes, softening the forehead. All extensions come into a point of creative tension within that focal etheric point of light between the eyebrows, seated upon the lotus, upon a sea of tranquility, and deepening into that chakra, that scintillating wheel. And stilling that mercurial lower mental body, holding that mercurial substance so that it is open to fresh impression, focalized within that chakra between the eyebrows, that directing center, into that point of brilliant light. We look into that light, through that light, and beyond to a greater above the head. The 1,000-petaled lotus, the crown center, itself a portal into the higher realms of the abstract mind, into the realm of the egoic lotus of the soul, a group conscious entity. And linking with our group fusion, visualizing one heart, one breath, a magnetic interplay of the soul, linking up with individuals and organizations around the world, standing within the very heart of the new group of world servers, the heart of the new group of world servers. Together we say, I am one with my group brothers, and all that I have is theirs. May the love which is in my soul pour forth to them. May the strength which is in me lift and aid them. May the thoughts which my soul creates reach and encourage them. Within the heart center of the new group of world servers, we visualize that golden bridge, that rainbow bridge between the spiritual hierarchy and humanity, linking with spiritual hierarchy, the planetary heart center, Christ at the heart of hierarchy, and extending, orienting towards Shambhala, where the will of God is known. The planetary head, heart, and throat coming into alignment, the three planetary centers. Mediating between hierarchy and humanity, focusing on the role of the new group of world servers, responding to hierarchical impression, meditating the plan into existence. We reflect on the seed thought of zero hunger, the principle of sharing. The principle of economic sharing and sharing in the work of hierarchy. we visualize the precipitation of the will to good, essential love flowing throughout the planet from Shambhala, the will to good, through the planetary heart, a hierarchy, through the Christ, through the new group of world servers, linking, holding, through all men and women of goodwill everywhere in the world it flows, and finally through the hearts and minds of the whole human family. Lower interlude. We consider the many ways in which the power of the one life, the love of the one soul, are working out in the world through members of the new group of world servers, building the thought form of solution to world problems, to zero hunger. And we sound the great invocation, visualizing the irradiation of human consciousness with light and love and power. The adapted version. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men, into human minds. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into human hearts. May the coming one return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide all little human wills, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the human race, humanity, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Cristina. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Next webinar will be on July 28th, and we invite you to join the group circle to bring our collective focus to the seed group of creative workers, together with Heidi Rose Robbins, who will take us on a journey. And your topic of presentation would be the radiance and relationship, courageously offering, blending, and extending our light. And next new moon, we will focus on the next SDG goal related to climate change. Thank you. Namaste.